I've been here 72 years. I'm not going to be having on my conscience if something happens. I'm not out to gloom and doom and scare the public. But all the seniors that I've talked to say, we need a police department. The money is going to the police department. We're going to lose 250 some or 235. What is the exact figure? Could I ask?
Around 260.
We're going to lose 260. We're going to get about 254 back. It'll at least keep us so we can tread water. Now, it's not going to go here. It's not going to go there. Look, stand for your vote. And if something goes, I'm not going to be the one that said, hey, I didn't give you the right to vote on whether you want or not. You stand on your vote tonight. And about the grants, Mr. Fixler was here. What grants did he get? Why did we get this dumped on us? We just got a grant writing company that's going to try to get us some grants in all areas. For everything, we hired a grant or a company. So don't blame this on where's the grants. We haven't had a grant writing company. YSU pulled out. We've just been able to get a new one. But where was our previous police chief? Where was all the grants? If the grants are all out there, where are they at? Where have they been for 5, 10 years? Well, we could have sure used them. We could have used them. My position is this. I want this community. I live here. I want it to grow. I want my grandkids. I want us to go forward, not backward. And I don't see us going forward with bringing maybe one sheriff in here, because the sheriff costs more than what one sheriff man costs more than what our people do. Our one man does. And God help you if you got to try to get them. If they're out in Kinsman or wherever they're at, they're out in Kinsman. And what is it going to take? What's it going to take? Somebody, I don't live on fear, but what's it going to take to get this community, the few naysayers we have, to realize that our police, our fire department, and our schools are the backbone of this community. That's all.
Ms. Stemper, did you want to second address?
Yeah, I wanted to correct Mr. Bariak. Mrs. Pretty specifically said, with our new grant writer, that she is not writing police grants, or they, whatever that company is, they are not doing police grants. That would be something we would have to look into. So, just correct that. I want to make it very clear that I support our police. I support our first responder. I have family members of first responders. My daughter is a first responder. I make my decision not on fear, not on naysayers, whatever. I make it on data, on black and white, what I see here.
Is that it?
Yep.
Anybody else?
Yes, I would like Mrs. Stuckert to correct her statement that the fire district lives on grants, because that is not true. The fire district lives on the property taxes that come from the village and the township, and this year that figure happens to be $975,000.
They write many grants for many things.
Okay. Mr. Federoff, did you have something?
Yeah, going back over some of the things that were brought to my attention these last couple, actually last month. One thing we have to realize, we're talking about a police levy. We have absolutely no control of the fire levy going on at the same time. And hopefully you won't let that, gee, do we want a fire department or do we want a police department? No, two separate entities. The fire department is the fire district. The police department is the Newton Falls Police Department. So when you go to talk to your neighbors or you get ready to vote, keep in mind that we are talking about a police department. And whether or not Newton Falls wants one, are we willing to make the sacrifices that it's going to take to keep them? Because this is just the start. This is just the start. We can't say no, I don't want to talk about it. We inherited this. you and I and everyone else, we inherited a three-man police department, and nobody in there, they were going on a grant that, at the time, we knew it wasn't gonna last forever. Everybody knew. But now, the monkey's on our back, so we're gonna have to take the hard stand, that's all there's to it.
Mr. Grant, you want to ask the rest?
Yes, please. I understand what Mr. Baryak is saying about a few naysayers. I get that. There's that with pretty much every piece of legislation. However, all I have heard from on this is naysayers. If there were a massive amount of people who supported this, I would have heard from any of them. I have not heard from a single constituent who is on board with this. Not one. Do they exist? I'm sure they do, but they have not reached out to me, and I can't read people's minds. Further from that, this happens every meeting. We talk about the previous administration. I get it. Things got jacked up. We got to move forward with that. But I don't care what happened before. I care what we're doing now. And right now, we've had a different chief in for the better part of a year, and we still don't have a grant for it. They're still not there. I understand that things happened with the previous administration. And I'm not taking that away from how things are affected by that today. But the people are not interested in what was done in the past. They want to know what we're going to do.
Mr. Grant, you would have more knowledge of this than myself, being in having relatives in
Sure.
police department, but what is and I know this from the interview process, what is the procedures that the chief, they had to do the paperwork? They're not able to write grants because they were not rated as, you understand what I'm saying?
I don't.
Whenever we did the interviews, that our police department is not involved in, I don't know if it was a committee or what, there were certain
I do know what you're talking about.
things
Yes.
that the chief had to do and Mr. Fixler did not do.
Yes,
So
it has to do with the training that is required and certifications that are
Certifications,
required. With that, I understand what you're saying, but with that, we haven't been making strides toward getting to that qualification either, to be able to get these grants. So if we're not moving in the direction of trying to help ourselves, how are we going to ask the people to do it for us? It's lazy. And like I said, I understand all of the stuff that everyone says about the previous administration. I understand the frustration. But we have to worry about now, not then. And right now, we don't have grants, we don't have anything going in the correct direction to get grants. And like I said, I had not a single constituent tell me that they support this.
Okay. Is the clerk ready to call for the roll?
Mrs. Fletcher?
Yes.
Mr. Grant?
No.
Mrs. Snifford?
No.
Mr. Federoff?
Yes.
Mr. Baryak?
Yes.
The resolution passes.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, whenever the clerk is ready to read ordinance 2022-36.
Ordinance 2022-36, an emergency ordinance establishing Village Fund 234 titled the One Ohio Opioid Settlement Fund.
You guys gotta keep it down.
So,
Second.
Any discussion?
Mayor, I would like to have some discussion on this.
Yeah, because somebody did ask the question earlier, what was the reason that he passed the emergency? If you could, go ahead, elaborate on that.
First of all, to establish a specific fund is a requirement. It's to document the rationale for expenditures. So to create this legislation in the form that it's in, I think it's a best practice to establish a fund, bring it before council for transparency, set a fund number, and then attach support for that fund. Not all communities do that. Because that way, this is going to be going on for 15 years. And we collected $3,500 this year, and we're going to collect $3,500 for the next 15 years. And what it'll do is it will enable any finance record in the future to look it up in your records and see the bulletin, how to spend money. It's a personal investment. And also regarding the emergency clause, Brad, please correct me on this. I stand to be corrected. Just because it has an emergency clause on it doesn't mean you don't have to give them 3 readings. You give them 3 readings. The emergency clause just simply means it becomes effective immediately. And I didn't need you to create the fund. I could create that fund right now, but I want to wait for your blessings on this. It's $3,500 sitting in the bank. You can sit there for another 3 months. We're not getting any more this year until another 2 readings, if you want to give it 3 readings. So, at your leisure, approve it. Whatever point in time that you feel comfortable.
Anybody want to weigh in on this?
Mayor, I got it for you.
Yeah, you have the floor.
Sean, so we've already received the money for this.
Yes.
So I'm curious why we would even entertain an emergency ordinance if we don't need it. Time isn't of the essence. I don't understand the issue.
I can answer that.
What's that?
It's just to make it effective once you approve it. Why wait another 30 days? Or, it's just a formality.
Right, I understand why wait another 30 days, but at the same time, why not wait another 30 days?
Yeah, you can. Whatever the 5 of you decide. Whatever the 5.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't time was of the essence where we're not going to get this money if it's,
No.
if it's not. Okay.
We already have it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, or Mr. Farrar.
Mr. Hauser,
Yeah.
this money, from what I understand, can only be used for very certain things. I don't understand why we can't start using the money now. If some of it would go to our police department, or trainings type stuff. And that, I don't understand what the big deal was. Why tie our hands for 30 days? If that's what they want to do, fine with them. You know, I mean, we could start using that money to help people now, instead of waiting 30 days. Isn't that right, sir?
Well, they go to maybe Tessa would like to talk a little bit about what the money can be spent on. Tessa, did you want to give that a chance? Or?
Yes, I've done my homework, so if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and address a couple things. This is the $808 million agreement that the state of Ohio settled, and when people hear that number, of course, it piques our interest because that's a really big number. And what people need to realize is that it's being distributed in the following manner. 30% of it is going to local governments, 55% of it is going to a foundation, and 15% of that is going to the Attorney General's office. So Sean is correct. We've already received our portion of the funds, and what little old Newton Falls here gets out of that $808 million is a little over $3,000. And that $3,000, we did receive it, I believe, according to my notes, you said it was sometime maybe mid-July we received it. And the money is just sitting in an account right now, waiting on us to figure out how it should be used. But, it does, and by the way, we're creating a revenue fund. Revenue funds means we're putting money into an account, and that's all this is doing. And the state of Ohio is very specific on how we can use these because, according to the bulletin that was included in our packets, the money can only be used for evidence-based, forward-looking strategies, programming and services used to expand the availability of treatment for individuals affected by the substance use disorders, develop, promote, and provide evidence-based substance use prevention strategies, provide substance use avoidance and awareness education, decrease the oversupply of licit and illicit opioids, and support recovery from addiction services performed by qualified and approved licensed providers. Now, in this bulletin, they also gave us some examples, especially for the local economy or local community to look out, and one of them was child welfare, law enforcement strategies, and other infrastructure in supports. And the reason I'm getting ahead of myself reading and speaking, but these local government funds are to use these strategies so that they're, I'm sorry, no. I don't even need to go through that stuff. Anyhow, again, It's a revenue fund. We are simply creating a revenue fund. We just need an account number to put the money into it.
And Mayor, to answer Barrett's question, you don't have to wait. Even though the fund's not established, the bulletin says that you can apply past costs to it. So you really don't have to wait.
Ms. Stemper, you have
I just want to clarify, how long have we been getting this? Is this like our first one? We've been getting it for a few years?
No.
Probably don't know, but
Just
we've been getting it.
you approved the application for it back in March. We received the money for the first time in the middle of July.
Okay, so this is our first round, it's not something they did every year.
It's gonna be $3,500.
This,
That's it.
when I'm listening and looking at this is just kind of an organizational type of situation, correct?
Correct, it's to just be transparent, and it's so that future finance directors have something to find quickly on your books, and if any future council have any questions about the purpose of the fund, it's there.
Question, one more question, so if we don't do this as an emergency and we wait 30 days and 10 days from now you find something that we need to spend it on or we're going to spend it on, then you kind of have to go back and clean that all up once this goes into effect?
We're going to go back, I think back to around the beginning of 2020, and apply those costs to this grant. They also recommended that if I make that decision, that you would approve it by legislation. So yes, the money's available now.
But it would make more work for you if we don't do it. Yeah.
No, I mean, to me, I just think look, why shouldn't it be effective once you pass it? If you want to give it 3 readings, give it 3 readings. But I mean, why wait another 30 days for what? Do you think that the community is going to raise a petition against receiving $3,500 a year? No.
any other discussion?
Yes, I would like a second address because I did see a couple things
Hold on a
like,
second, let me see if Mr. Federoff has.
sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Spencer.
Yes, 2 things I do also want to mention is that, because this money is going to into a very specific revenue fund, the auditor's office has also asked that every expenditure will be carefully tracked and adequate documentation for the expenditure must be maintained. And they will check for those things when they come and do an audit. Now, the other thing I want to let council know is that they also recommend that, we're not done with this. When it comes to actually spending this money, the handout said that they would prefer that council adopt legislation about how and the rationale for each expenditure. So there's $3,500, none of that's going to get spent without us knowing it. Because the auditor's office is recommending it and encouraging localities to actually have it done as legislation. Now I'm done.
Any other discussion before we go ahead and call for the roll?
Yes, Mayor, Madam Clerk.
Yeah, you have the floor.
I'm not saying that I oppose this. For example, the emergency ordinance setting up Mr. Bryant's pay. Of course, I support paying him, but I didn't support it as an emergency because I didn't find it to be an emergency. This is the same thing. There's legitimately no sense of urgency on this. Money can be spent. The money has been received. I stand on what I've said dozens of times that if it's not an emergency, I don't support it passing as an emergency. So while I support doing this because it's a pretty benign thing to do, I don't support doing it as an emergency. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay, anything else? If not, whenever clerk is ready to call for the roll.
Mr. Federoff,
Yes.
Mr. Doriak,
Yes.
Ms. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Granchi,
No.
Ms. Stemper.
Yes.
Okay, passes. Okay. Second time around, ordinance 2022-36. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Doria, do we have a second?
Second.
Do we need any discussion, or we'll just call for the roll?
I just wanted to make a statement and, ask Mr. Bryan, on this conversation, because I sat on the fire board, I abstained and stayed out of the conversation. Because I sat on a vote, and I plan to do the same today. Is that appropriate?
You want to abstain, what's the reason?
Because I sat on the fire board too, they're talking about selling this car to the fire board.
We're still.
Yeah, we're still on the.
We're still on the second part.
Sorry. I wonder why somebody was,
No, I-
Sorry.
Okay. you
say that,
still-
no, just, we'll do that at the appropriate time, I'm sorry.
Okay, if there's no discussion on the second vote for, this emergency ordinance, whatever, Mr.
Mrs. Stempert,
Yes,
Mr. Griacci,
No.
Mrs. Blitzer,
Yes.
Mr. Bariak,
Yes,
Mr. Federoff.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance passed. Okay, ordinance 2022-38.
37, sir.
37, yeah. I was just asking.
An ordinance, 2022-37, an ordinance authorizing the sale of a village 2013 Ford Taurus police vehicle to the Newton Falls Joint Fire District.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Dorian, Mr. Federoff, any discussion?
All right, let me start here. The last time we put the car up for $1,500, I want to let the people know some insight. I have permission to talk to Chief of Police from Mrs. Purdy, and what I was able to ascertain was the car is a flood car. Kevin Ford said it's a flood car, first of all. That automatically, book value on it is $3,000 to $4,000. It needs brakes, it's only run on 5 cylinders, it needs tires, there's a lot of other work. When we put it up for 15, I wasn't aware of the $1,000 benchmark. And I withdrew the motion. But then it's going in-house. They're willing, they'd like to have it. It's working with the fire department.
I don't need to hear you up here.
And really, if you come right down to it, we're asking for an extra $500 worth the car's not worth. If they'd like to have it, if it was going to somebody else, well, when are we going to start working together? We want to help each other out. They want it will save us vehicle use somewhere else in one of our other fire department usage. And I just thought that this was a good way to have somebody get it that would be in-house and we could. Look, we didn't mind, and I don't mind, we didn't mind giving a $5,000 to $10,000 dog away for $1. We didn't mind giving a $500 police gun away for $1. I'm not against it. I voted for it, but what I'm saying is, why are we making such an issue out of this? I want to have this as a one-time, would you explain that to him, Mr. Brad, about a one-time exception to the $1,000 rule, and we sell it to him for the $1,500?
Yes, the ordinance.
Would you speak up, sir?
The ordinance is specifically written to allow the village to deviate from the Ohio State revised code provision on selling property of the village. So in the absence of this legislation, we would have to follow the state law, which requires items of $1,000 in value or over to be either sell it by sealed bids or by auction. So this allows you to do it legally, And as Mr. Granchi explained earlier in the meeting, we do have legislation to give the village flexibility on these issues in the future, raising the threshold to $1,500 and allowing different ways to dispose of property without being restricted by the state law in the future.
Okay, any other discussion?
I just want to put on record that I'm abstaining from all of this because I'm on the fire board. Attorney Comstock had advised that, so.
What was that? I couldn't hear you.
She's abstaining from this because of herself being on the fire board. She's abstaining from discussion on this piece of legislation. Any other discussion?
Yes, Mayor Melick.
Yes.
I used my own money to run the VIN number on this, and I don't know where you got the information that I've been through a flood. That's not on the title at all. The
Pepperidge Ford, sir.
Sorry,
Pepperidge Ford.
I have everything right here. It hasn't been anything like that since 2018, and even then it was not added that it was had any flood damage. The market average for this vehicle is $8,600.
Wow.
Not $1,500. I'm not opposed to helping our fire district. I'm opposed to doing it sneakily. It's not even close to, it says that $1,500 is the market value. I mean, I have everything down to every feature in this thing. Like, this has every detail possible, every recall, there's no accidents to speak of, but it would be in here. Everything's in here. Flood damage is specifically mentioned that there's no flood damage. This isn't a $1,500 vehicle. I just sold a 2009 Ford Focus with over 200,000 miles on it for $2,500. And it had mechanical problems too. The used car market's so high, we can sit here and talk about how much we need money, and then we're just going to basically give this car away. It doesn't make any sense to me. I read this is generated as of yesterday. So unless it was in a flood last night, there's no flood damage on this.
And Mr. Federoff or Ms. Blitzer, did you have any other? No?
I don't, can I ask Mr. Granchi, would that 8,600 be considered like Kelly Blue Book value, or?
I'm not sure where it comes to Blue Book value. This just lists the market value range where it goes by zip code, and other ones that have been sold with the same packages, same mileage, same everything like that. And that's it right there if you want to look. Even below market value is $6,590, and the scrap value on is about $800.
Okay, anything else, Ms. Blitzer?
No, that's all.
Okay, is there any other discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Marquardt?
Just,
I have one.
Okay, let's Mr. Federoff.
go ahead, Mr. Federer.
Okay, if we put this on the market, don't work anything with the fire department. Keeping it in-house, cut in the expenses there because we're paying for that too. We have no use for the car, as far as the village goes. It's served this purpose. If you put it on the market, would you want your kid in that car? I don't. I'm saying that to go through the extra expense time of putting this on the market, where anybody can come in and get it, are we gonna get $8,500 or anything else like that? No, I would say as a municipality, many times this stuff is automatically transferred to other government agencies, which the fire department is, the fire district. If we can get $1,500 and they wanna pay it, yes, I'd let them have it. For that, to me, I just flat give it to them, because we look at it as a transfer between government agencies. Thank you.
Yeah, Mark.
He doesn't know whether it's Kelly Blue Book or what. I'm not gonna argue. Here's the thing. There's loan value, there's wholesale value, there's retail value, there's this, there's that. This is in-house. This is to help the fire department out. I don't see why we're out to break our back on our own people. When the money, you know what I mean, I really don't think in the long run, and oh, by the way, Kevin Ford this car was bought down in West Virginia. So I don't know what went on down there. It was drug up here from West Virginia, maybe they missed it. I know that Carfax doesn't get all the whether it's been wrecked or not 100% of the time if you slide it into a certain dealer. It doesn't go along with the listing it, you know, fixing it, some guy doing it on the side. They're not gonna know whether it was wrecked or not. So all I'm saying, I'm not gonna argue that point. I'm arguing the point is it's in the house. And it's for the fire department. They've been told what to expect out of it when they're, you know, and they're still willing to take it. I don't see why we're gonna profiteer off the fire department. I really don't.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, if not, whenever the clerk's ready to call for the roll.
Ms. Swetzer?
Oh, shoot. I was gonna look at the papers real quick. Well, because one of the things that I did ask him is what the mileage was on the vehicle. The vehicle,
129,000.
yeah, 129,829, so it does have a lot of miles. And one more thing I would like to clarify, because the way this legislation reads is that the fire district offered us this price.
Yeah, that's correct. It doesn't say what it's worth in the legislation. It just says the fire department offered $1,500 and it would be sold for $1,500.
Anything else? If not, whenever the clerk's ready to call for the roll.
Swetzer?
Yes.
Mr. Franchi?
No.
Mr. Federoff?
Yes.
Mr. Faria?
Yes.
Mr. Engel, if you can just clarify that
Mrs.
Ms. Stewart's abstaining, if you can just.
Mrs. Stipper?
Abstain.
Thank you.
Okay, passes. Okay, ordinance 2022-38, whatever our clerk's ready to read.
Ordinance 2022-38, an ordinance establishing section 121.06 of the administrative code pertaining to the sale or disposal of municipal personal property.
We have a motion.
So,
We have a second.
I'll second.
Mr. Ranchi, Mrs. Stemper, any discussion?
yes, Mayor Miller.
You have the floor.
Yeah, this is just establishing in our administrative code how we sell village property from now on. So we don't have well, the charter says this, the ORC says this, all that from here and back. Seems like whoever favors, they're going to go with whatever side they want. This just cements everything. This is how we sell things for the city of Beacon Falls, village of Beacon Falls, and that's all there is to it. So that's all this ordinance is.
Okay, anything else? Okay, if no further discussion, whatever the clerk.
Yeah, I do have a question.
Okay.
I'm not sure, is it redundant? Don't we already have an ordinance that was passed that says, you know, this 12106? I'm just kind of confused. I felt like maybe it was redundant.
I looked into the best of my research and the administration's research. There was an ordinance that, I think from 2021, that disposed of municipal property. There was a list of items to be disposed of, but it didn't set forth the procedures. So I didn't find anything. And part of the problem I've run into since I started is there's a lot of legislation that was passed where these rules have not been put in the codified ordinances, so it's just a piece of legislation that sits out there that unless somebody knows something about it, it's hard to find. But we did spend a lot of time looking and didn't find anything. I'm not saying there isn't anything out there, but I think the specific piece of legislation we're looking at just dealt with specific items, had a list of items. But this would actually put something in the code, a new separate ordinance.
Okay, because this makes me feel like it's something that we passed in 2021.
Right.
this 12106, that, it would be in the codified ordinances.
It's not online, if it is.
Okay, is that all you have, Ms. Spencer?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Barry, or
Mr. Bryan, I thought that we passed this in 2021 in September, where everything over $1,000 had to go out for bid. Is this what he wants to straighten up? And I don't know about $500. Is that what I see something about 1,500. Could you explain this?
Yes,
What's the difference?
the only thing I'm aware of that happened in 2021, and again, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, was a piece of legislation of items that were worth over $1,000 was passed with a list of these things will be disposed of, in authorizing how they would be disposed of. There were specific list of specific items, not generally how it's going to be done in the future. So right now,
Excuse me. Mayor, I can't hear I can hear what he's saying, but I'm also getting interference.
okay.
right now, the Ohio Revised Code requires for items that are valued over $1,000, it's not real estate, it's personal property items, have to be sold by sealed bids after 30 days notice and advertising, I think 2 times, or by auction after advertising in 30 days. So this would give the village flexibility to just dispose of these items in the future. You wouldn't have to strictly follow the state law. It would raise the threshold from $1,000 to $1,500, and it allows you still to get sealed bids if you want to handle it that way. You can do it by public auction, internet or otherwise. The period's only 10 days, so if you're going on GovDebt deals, you don't have to leave it up for 30 days. If you don't want to, you can set it just has to be a minimum of 10 days. And it also, subsection B talks about, if you want to donate something, even though it's above that value, you have the flexibility by council action to decide we're going to donate something. For example, if you wanted to donate to the fire department, you could do that. If it's a burden, even if the value's over that amount, but if it costs, more to fix it, then it might be worth, you don't have to fix it. You can get rid of things, transfer them, whatever's best for the village, but it leaves the control of doing that under council. It's not the administration can't just decide it on their own without council's approval. So it's very similar to what we did with the real estate provisions of selling real estate to give greater flexibility to council.
Go ahead.
Are we trying to correct a oversight that Mr. Fritz, our last law director, had when we passed that $1,000 thing? In other words, what you're explaining should have been with the ORC to begin with, wasn't it? Am I getting this